This holiday, instead of giving them something nice, why not gift them somewhere nice? During the IHG Hotels and Resorts Cyber Sale, you can do just that and save. Shopping is easy in the IHG One Rewards app, where you'll save 20% on travel across 6,000 plus global destinations. And if you want to gift yourself somewhere nice, go ahead. You'll earn more and save more during the cyber sale. Check out all the deals at ihg.com/cyber sale. Terms apply.
Did you miss your deadline to renew your Medicaid coverage? You can still send your completed annual review form to Healthy Connections Medicaid. You may be assigned to another health plan, but you can ask to come back to First Choice within 60 days of renewed Medicaid eligibility. It's your family. It's your choice. First Choice is the right choice. Renew and choose us. Visit selecthealthofsc.com/renew to learn more.
Welcome to Pretty Lies and Alibis. Join us as we seek the truth and travel the long road to justice. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Pretty Lies and Alibis. I'm Gigi Fruit Loop. What you know?
In honor of your Aunt Angie, I'm throwing out this one. Did you know Elvis only won 3 Grammys?
Really?
Yeah, I was like, what? So he had 18 number one hits in his career, but struck out on 11 of his 14 nominations. I was like, what? Because he had a ton of hits. You know what I mean? Like 18 number one hits, you only get 3 Grammys.
It was probably people in the South that thought he was like the devil.
Yeah.
Because he could thrust his hips.
I was going to say, they didn't show him from the waist up for a long time. Yeah, but I know Angie didn't like that.
Yeah. So that's insane. I knew it wasn't a large number. I just didn't know.
Yeah.
Like
3.
That's interesting. You know, a lot of really good musicians don't win Grammys.
Yep.
And that's unfortunate. But, you know, yeah. So anyways, okay. So can I just say life needs to move this little black cloud away from me and my family right now?
Yeah. It's been crazy busy and crazy stuff.
Crazy week. I get a call this morning early from my grandmother. She took a tumble, couldn't get up. So here I go, like 80 to her house. She's okay. She's sore. And then my dad's brother, my Uncle Robbie, he's on hospice. It's just like, what is up? Like, Uncle, I'm tired. I'm drowning.
Well, they say things come in threes, right?
Well, these threes need, I just, it's just like, dude. But you know what? Things could always be worse. So I'm just going with that mindset because otherwise, like, you might find me in the corner.
Yeah.
Things could always be worse. So I just keep telling myself that and keep smiling, keep going.
There you go.
So this case that, we're still getting back in the groove of being a duo. We want to give a shout out to one of our amazing sponsors, Too Cool T-Shirt Quilts. You can go to toocooltshirtquilts.com/pretty lies and alibis. They'll know we sent you. What can they do, Fruit Loop?
They can take your T-shirts and make them into a quilt that is too cool.
Yes, they can. I have to show this picture real quick. For those of you on YouTube, I'm going through Angie's scrapbooks. You know, she used to scrapbook a lot. Found this gem I don't think I've ever seen of you and I on graduation day.
No, let's. Oh, you know what? That's outside. We're taking a picture by somebody else.
Yeah, because that's what's a side profile.
That was when the limo broke down.
Oh my, that was like the worst limo. A friend of ours got us a limo, and like it had like 3 inches of dust on all the glasses on the inside, and
yeah. It was part of their retired section of limos, I think.
Yeah. So this case that we're going to do today, we were going to do Josh Duggar. That's not super time sensitive, but this case I followed really closely back in 2009 because this girl went missing right near where our beach house is.
Yeah, I remember this.
Yeah, it's a crazy case. And, you know, you hear less and less over the years, unfortunately, of these cold cases. It's just something new comes along that gets everybody's attention. And I've actually not thought about this case in quite a while. It's Brittanee Drexel. And there's been an arrest in her murder and a confession, apparently. So we're going to go through. This has a really good timeline that ABC4 down in the Low Country put out. So we're kind of using that as a guideline for how this all played out. Unbelievable this guy was even free after what he did in California. So 13 years ago, on April 25th, 2009, 17-year-old high school junior Brittanee Drexel disappeared from Myrtle Beach while on spring break. She was from Rochester, New York. So
I remember this case.
yeah, I remember watching that surveillance video of her leaving the friend's hotel. Things like that are so eerie to me to watch when it's like the last known video of somebody, because it's like knowing what we know. It just weirds me out.
It's like the Natalie Holloway case, right?
Yeah, which man, I tell you, that dude's in prison, but they never found her. So investigators announced yesterday the arrest of 62-year-old Raymond Moody in the cold case. He has a super violent history. If you haven't seen his mugshot, go look. I try not to be really mean about appearances, but I would poke One Eye Willie's one good eye out if I could. This guy is a predator. He's got like one eye that's just shut and just creeps me out. And I normally wouldn't say that about somebody who is decent, but anyways, let's go way back and establish a timeline. This actually starts before Brittanee was born. So in 1983, Moody was sentenced to 40 years in prison for convictions in several violent sexual crimes involving the kidnapping and sexual assault of 7 young girls in California. His arrest record says the ages were 11 to 14.
Wow.
So
that would have been our age. We were around that age.
Right. Yeah.
Wow.
So back in 2004, this is in California. He was released after serving 21 years, and he came back to Georgetown, South Carolina, which was his hometown. So in September of 2008, he's charged with indecent exposure, but they reduced that to public disorderly conduct. Okay, number one, he's on parole at this point, most likely. He's a violent offender, and he's flashing his junk to people, and they reduced the charge.
That makes no sense.
Okay, a year later, not even a year later, February 2009, he fails to register as a sex offender. He's fined $250. That's it. April 22, 2009 is where we get to Brittanee. She goes to Myrtle Beach without permission from her mom. Her mom didn't even know she was going. After her disappearance, her mom said no adults were going on that trip, and she just kind of had this feeling something was going to happen to her if she came. So they had a big argument, and she had told her mom that she was going to stay with a friend in New York to kind of cool off from their little fight. And she actually called her from Myrtle Beach. So she came, and she didn't find out until days later that Brittanee had come to the beach. It wasn't until Brittany's boyfriend, who had not gone on the trip, called Brittany's mom and said he was worried because he hasn't heard from her. So April 25th, 2009, Brittanee is last seen on surveillance in Myrtle Beach, leaving the Blue Water Resort on Ocean Boulevard. We call that the Strip. That's the main drag, or the Strip as we call it, around 8:45 p.m. And she had walked about 1.5 miles to meet friends at their hotel. And on the Strip, 1.5 miles is not like a long walk. It's like hotel row.
Yeah.
And back then the Pavilion was probably still up, which is an amusement park that's kind of used to be right in the center of the Strip. It's really busy, especially April, which is spring break, and Myrtle Beach is always packed. So she texted her boyfriend to tell him that she was walking back to her hotel, which was the Bar Harbor. And after that, the calls and texts stopped. That night, her cell phone pings for the final time near the Charleston and Georgetown county line, about 1.5 hours, a little less from the beach.
Wow. So April 26, 2009, Moody is pulled over in Surfside Beach for a traffic violation.
That was the day after he killed her, by the way.
Wow. That's scary to think that.
And Surfside Beach, that's where my house is. It's like, I remember thinking, like, when they said Surfside, whoa.
Yeah.
Man.
So December 2009, her sunglasses are found inland. August of 2016, authorities announced Moody as a person of interest, and they execute a search warrant in the hotel room where he had been staying in Georgetown. There wasn't enough evidence at that time to charge him. June of 2016, the FBI has a presser where they say they believe Brittanee is dead. a victim of kidnapping and sex trafficking, held at a stash house in McClellanville, and then killed. They believe her body was fed to alligators. They put up a $25,000 reward for information leading to an arrest in the case. That is so scary.
Yeah.
We live in an area, and even down that way, where you get on, a certain highway and you can be one direction in no time.
Well, I-95, it goes from like Miami all the way up the East Coast. It's it's like the main drug trafficking interstate in the whole country.
Yep. So August of 2016, the FBI says jailhouse informants pointed them to Sean and Timothy Taylor, residents of McClellanville, as possible kidnappers and murderers of Brittanee. They bring charges for an old crime to get Timothy to talk. He said he had nothing to do with her being missing. In court, investigators say he failed a lie detector test regarding facts of her disappearance. So in March of 2017, investigators search a wooded area off a dirt road in Georgetown, which is called Foxfire Court. They never said if or what they found. And on May 4th, 2022, Moody is arrested for obstruction of justice, and his bond was set at $100,000, and he now has no bond.
Right. So May 12th of this year, Brittanee's remains are located in a wooded area 2.5 miles from where Moody had been living at the time of her disappearance. So May 16th, yesterday, the remains are positively identified as Brittanee through dental records, and Moody is officially charged with her kidnapping, rape, and murder. He confessed, apparently, and led them to her body. And once they identified her yesterday, they turned her body over to her family. Her mom actually moved to Myrtle Beach after she went missing to be closer to where she disappeared from. I don't know where she lives now. But man, as a mother, that is just unimaginable to think for years and years and years. You don't know where your baby is.
Yeah.
I don't know how you function day to day.
I'm glad they have some closure now, because you thinking that there's a possibility she was alive or not. That'd be horrible.
Right. And then with sex trafficking, Myrtle Beach is the number one, or used to be the number one county in the whole state for sex trafficking, which is a whole horrible situation in itself.
Yeah.
So either way, it had to have been bad. The news never could have been good.
No.
Did you miss your deadline to renew your Medicaid coverage? You can still send your completed annual review form to Healthy Connections Medicaid. You may be assigned to another health plan, but you can ask to come back to First Choice within 60 days of renewed Medicaid eligibility. It's your family. It's your choice. First Choice is the right choice. Renew and choose us. Visit selecthealthofsc.com/renew to learn more.
With Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to... Has anyone seen the bride and groom?
Sorry, we're here. We were getting lucky in the limo and we lost track of time.
No, Lucky Land Casino, with cash prizes that add up quicker than a guest registry.
In that case, I pronounce you lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Daily bonuses are waiting. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
So...
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Was
I
that
didn't know
me?
if you knew where you were. Yeah, that's you. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, dude. I need to sleep. I'm drinking the coffee. My dogs are barking at the Uber Eats guy, who I hope my kids get my stuff before like the neighborhood dog does. So they believe she was raped and killed at the Santee River, and her body was then moved to Old Town Avenue, which is where they found it. The cause of death has not been revealed. Authorities say it could take weeks to determine how she was murdered, although arrest warrants say manual strangulation. It also says Moody utilized aggravating force. So this is interesting because this is what's kind of scary about like jailhouse informants. Sometimes it's just they may not like somebody and want to get them in trouble. Clearly now we know Timothy Taylor was innocent of all this. So in a statement to ABC4, Timothy Taylor's attorney said, thus far, the FBI has not extended us the courtesy of providing an update. Hopefully, the FBI will have the decency to issue a statement clearing Mr. Taylor with the same fanfare as when he was falsely accused. So about an hour and a half later, the FBI issued a press release which said, throughout the investigation, we followed multiple leads to wherever they led us, and until the conclusion of those leads. That portion of the investigation was concluded, and we are confident that with Mr. Moody's arrest, we have the man responsible for Brittanee's murder. You have to think, it was the guy and his son both were implicated. These jailhouse informants had this really elaborate story of how they saw her up to a month after her disappearance. One said they saw her get murdered and then they left so they wouldn't be an accomplice, which either one is a big fat lie, or number two, somebody's still missing and that's who got killed. It's just, you wonder why such an intricate story.
Yeah. And he failed a lie detector test.
Right. But, people that are innocent can fail and then people that are guilty can pass. That's why they're not admissible in court. But, this poor guy, because, for a bunch of decades, people probably look at him like he was guilty.
Yeah.
So just back in April on the anniversary of her disappearance, which was just last month, a few weeks ago, her family was in Myrtle Beach and they would come sit under a tree where there's a memory stone for her. And her mom said at that time, she tries not to get frustrated and hopes the case is solved.
So after Brittanee's remains were discovered, her mom said, this is truly a mother's nightmare. Dawn Drexel said at the news conference, I am mourning my beautiful daughter Brittanee as I have been for 13 years, but today is bittersweet. We are much closer to the closure and the peace that we have been desperately hoping for. They plan to have a celebration of life in both Rochester and Myrtle Beach at some point in the future. So Brittanee wanted to be a nurse, a cosmetologist, or a model. And you hate to see somebody's life come to an end like this. She wasn't doing anything wrong.
No, maybe she went to Myrtle Beach without her mom's permission, but still, she was just going from A to B.
Yeah.
And here's my biggest thing. And it's almost like we need to be marching in the streets for harsher penalties for people that are violent sexual predators. How are these guys and gals getting such short sentences or getting out early? I just don't think that people that have attacked people like that overall are redeemable as far as being integrated back into society.
Yeah.
Why?
Obviously he had a problem.
A huge problem.
Mm-hmm.
40 years and he served a year more than half. And it's just we are all we can do is pray we're not statistics.
Yep.
But when are these judges going to get harsh? And Josh Duggar, give him the max. Don't let him out for good behavior. They reoffend as soon as they're back out there.
Yep.
Insane.
Yep.
So one other little thing that we're going to cover real quick, George Wagner IV, which is the brother of Jake Wagner, who has confessed in the Roden murders. There was they had a hearing about a motion to suppress the audio recordings from listening devices that they planted in Jake's truck, and also to get the confessions by Jake and Angela tossed out of his trial. So they had investigator Seth Hageman testify, and he said they put 4 different listening devices in the truck as the family traveled to Alaska, 2 in the front and 2 in the back. And so usually when you bug a car, the usual time they give you to intercept is 30 days. You can ask for an extension if you need it. They ended up extending that twice. They listened for 90 days total from Jake's semi-truck. And
dude, I would hate to be that person.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Just sitting there listening.
I don't know, because I'm kind of nosy. I would love to kind of be a fly on the wall if they're being investigated. But just randomly, no. I don't care what you talk about in your car with whoever you're riding with.
Yeah.
So typically to get that extension, you have to show that you're collecting information that is important, but you haven't got everything you need just yet. So the Wagners mentioned they thought they might be listened to or bugged. And this was picked up by the listening device. I can't wait to hear all the stuff at trial. It's going to be an intriguing trial, really.
Yeah.
Found out, too, the jurors will go inside those trailers they moved. That's the crime scenes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's huge. So the Wagners changed their phone numbers between 2017 and 2018. So investigators had to go and get new warrants and all that stuff. In all, they monitored 5 phones. So the fact that the Wagners all lived together actually made surveillance of those phones a lot harder since they didn't need to call each other as often. And they would sometimes say they would talk when they got home and not over the phone.
So one of the guns was owned by Jake, but they never found it. Investigators received over 1,000 tips, and they didn't establish probable cause against anyone else. Only the Wagner family. They did investigate other people, though. Jake and George dyed their hair just before the murders. Jake watched the Boondock Saints in the hours before the murder. And we know this movie is about brothers who use vigilante justice to cleanse their hometown of evil, becoming heroes to some in their community. George got new tattoos after the murders, including an 8-ball and skull, another with aces and 8s, which is called a dead man's hand. This raised suspicion with the Bureau of Criminal Investigations. Sorry, I had to cough. I didn't want you to hear it.
No, it's...
So back when the Wagners were interviewed on their way back from Alaska and Montana, that was the only time George was interviewed, and those lasted several hours with each family member. George was the only one who had not been interviewed prior to this. So defense attorney John Parker said those interviews did not produce enough information for prosecution. Investigator Hageman said at this point all of their investigative leads were exhausted, which is required to get an intercept warrant.
Yeah. So at the time investigators had intercepted the conversations, the Wagners knew they were on radar of law enforcement when they got these. Oh man, I need to fire up that Keurig one more time before bed.
I just
They
spilled water
knew
everywhere.
at the time the truck was bugged. The Wagners knew they were on law enforcement's radar. Phew. They had turned over their computers to law enforcement and told investigators they were moving to Alaska. You know, and I think I said this before, at that panel that Joseph Scott Morgan did, and also with the Piketon Massacre hosts who are super smart and amazing to listen to, she said she fully believes had they not moved back from Alaska, they would not have been prosecuted. It was some mistakes made on the way back that, you know, maybe gave them away. He also said they had confidential informants whose identities were known only to the investigators who were working with them and their superiors. And Hagman himself wasn't working with any informants. The defense said that Chris Sr. and the Roden family were having trouble with some drug-related people, but they weren't worried about it. So, you know, in the beginning, it was the whole cartel. This was a hit.
Yeah.
Then the big thing is the kids were left alive. Cartel don't do that.
Yeah.
Totally random exchange between the defense and the witness where they acknowledge how much weight George has lost in jail. And Hageman says he has. He looks nice. Parker asks Hageman if they have a direct confession from George, and he said no, but George made statements against self-interest. So Parker says investigators do what they call tickle the wires to get conversations to happen. And Parker says they had a court order against Angela's mother during this monitoring. And Hageman said they were collecting evidence of forgery and they created conversation. He also said the recorded conversations were difficult to hear. But tickling the wires means that they may call them and say something that might get their brains working like they're on to us and then see what kind of conversation comes. Hageman admits they used tips from a psychic while investigating these murders. And ultimately, the bloody shoe prints is what led them to the Wagners as suspects. There were statements made during the questioning in Montana and also the proof of purchase of the shoes that put the pieces together. And they discussed admitting Jake and Angela's confession. The prosecution hasn't filed their response to this, but that will be argued. And that next hearing is June 21st, where they will hear that. So we're starting to see a lot of hearings for him.
Yeah.
His trial's coming up it's just going to be, I would love to go sit in the courtroom for some of that, to be honest.
Dude, it's crazy that one of the ways you got caught was you bought shoes at Walmart.
Yeah. I mean, but remember, Jake had like a box of important documents and like the receipt was in it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, the perfect murder doesn't exist, but they almost committed the perfect murder.
Yeah, I think they hid some guns in some like concrete. They poured concrete and buckets or something.
They found some stuff in a
And
well on one of
yeah.
the properties and that kind of
Yeah.
thing. But then, Jake confessed. I don't think he really had any reason to lie in his confession. He admitted to murdering 5 of the 8.
Yep.
So you kind of wonder what's the point of George IV and Billy wanting to take it to trial. But I
Yep.
guess, what do you got to lose?
No.
I mean, but it's
Money.
been since 2016.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a long time. I mean, we've had family members of the Rodens pass away waiting for justice while this has just been caught up in the courts. Insane case.
Yeah.
So anyways, tomorrow we will, in case something crazy happens, do the Josh Duggar episode. Again, May 25th is his sentencing. We won't be able to watch it because it's federal, but
somebody will tweet, right?
I don't think they can live tweet from the courtroom. They have to wait till like it's over.
Break or whatever.
Yeah. So anyway, the one federal trial I sat in, we couldn't bring our cell phones in.
Yeah.
But it could have been specific to that case. So,
Yeah.
all right, guys, that's all we got for you guys tonight. Hope you have a good evening. I'm going to get my Uber Eats.
Yeah, I gotta eat too. I'm hungry.
I'm hangry.
Yeah.
All right, guys, we'll see you soon.
With the Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
This is your captain speaking. We've got clear runway and the weather's fine, but we're just going to circle up here a while and get lucky. No, nothing like that. It's just these cash prizes add up quick. So I suggest you sit back, keep your tray table upright, and start getting lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Fargo, the new virtual assistant from Wells Fargo, makes banking faster and easier. Like this.
Fargo, what's my checking account routing number?
And this.
Fargo, turn off my debit card.
And this.
Fargo, what did I spend on groceries last month?
And that's just the beginning. Do you, Fargo? You can. In the Wells Fargo mobile app. Learn more at wellsfargo.com/getfargo.
Terms and conditions apply. Your mobile carrier's availability and message and data rates may apply. Wells Fargo Bank, N.A., member FDIC.